Hello my dear students from grade 5. How are you? I hope you are doing well. Welcome back to our Social Studies new video lesson, Unit 4 Lesson 5, Environmental. My dear students, before going, I need you to bring out your student book, activity book, and highlighter pen. Very good. I am so happy to see that you are well organized to learn today's lesson. Dear students, before starting our new lesson, I need to know whoever had done their homework for your previous lesson. Very good. I really appreciate your interest on doing homework and making your teacher and parents happy. You are one of greater students from our school. Anyway, I need you to check your homework with the answer key that I am going to show you next. Are you ready? Okay, here is the answer key for the questions from your activity book page 74. Before starting our today's lesson, kindly pay your attention to important instructions from the teacher. Instruction number 1, after watching the video lesson, read whole the lesson very carefully up to you understand everything. Instruction number 2, wherever you see the symbol in this video lesson, don't forget to highlight the sentences from your books, check for which book and page number, to which it point towards. Remember all the keywords and their meaning. Instruction number 3, don't forget to make the classwork and homework from your activity book, at the end of each lesson. Are you ready? Very good. Okay dear students. Our today's lesson is Unit number 4 Lesson number 5 Environmental Issues. Again, Lesson 5 Environmental Issues. Dear students, repeat the title of our today's lesson with me. Lesson 5 Environmental Issues. I want you to be understood about our today's benchmarks on this lesson. In this lesson you will analyze the effects human activities have had on the environment, past and present. Analyze the impact modern life has on the environment, and predict how future discoveries and inventions could affect our lives. Again, today we will analyze the effects human activities have had on the environment, past and present. Analyze the impact modern life has on the environment, and predict how future discoveries and inventions could affect our lives. Good. Dear students, I need you to focus with your student textbook page 130. When the teacher reads, you kindly just reread in your mind so that you will be knowing the facts and keywords from this lesson. Are you ready? Great. Environmental effects of fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers are very powerful. They provide chemical nutrients that plants take up as food. However, fertilizers can also damage the balance of nutrients and life cycles in our environment. The nitrogen in fertilizers can also cause environmental damage. Read the caption of the picture now. Nitrogen is an important component of fertilizers. Plants take in nitrogen from the soil. They need it to grow and to produce green leaves. Okay, my dear students, don't forget to highlight the important sentences from this page.
Every summer, something called the dead zone forms in the Gulf of Mexico. It ranges from the size of Delaware to the size of New Jersey. It's a massive patch of water that doesn't have enough oxygen for sea creatures to survive. If you are a crab or a fish or a baby shrimp caught in the dead zone, you die. The problem starts thousands of miles away. When fertilizer gets applied to farmland, some washes into the Mississippi River, where it will fertilize algae. Look at what happens when you add fertilizer to ocean or lake water. You can see the algae loves the fertilizer. It all blooms at once, then dies, then decomposes. And in that process, it sucks all the oxygen out of the water. That is bad news for those dear, sweet baby shrimp. No, seriously, it's really bad. For them and for the people who depend on them for a living. Fertilizer pollution causes problems even before it gets to the ocean. It can contaminate drinking water or turn into suffocating smog, and it's a big contributor to global warming. The federal government has spent billions of dollars a year to fix the problem, but nothing's changed. The thing that makes this problem so tricky is that we can't live without the pollutant that's causing these dead zones. Without nitrogen and phosphorus, we can't grow food. Before industrial fertilizer, the naturally occurring fertilizer, known by its technical name, poop, determined a farmer's yields and thus their wealth. If you were a French farm girl back then, your dowry was calculated not in acres of land, but instead in the pounds of manure that your animals could provide. Wars were fought over nitrogen-rich guano. Most scientists say that for all the problems with too much fertilizer, a world with too little would be even worse. Bloodier, hungrier, and shittier. The trick with fertilizer is to maximize crop growth and minimize algae growth. But how? Well, the most promising solution is simple, just planting stuff on open soil. It's called a cover crop. Most farms in the US look like this in the winter and spring. A lot of rain tends to fall during those seasons, and all that water washes away nutrients and soil. With cover crops, it's more like this. Cover the soil with ryegrass, clover, or really any kind of plant, and they will provide a buffer, slowing down raindrops, sucking up nutrients, and holding the soil in place with their roots. What's really exciting about cover crops is that they may provide a win-win for farmers, trapping nutrients to improve soil, while also reducing pollution and flooding downstream. And so, cover crops are booming. The number of acres planted with them increased 50% in recent years. But even after all that growth, cover crops only cover this much of American farmland. So what if it looked more like this? That's what happened in one small watershed in northern Indiana. The results were dramatic. In the spring, when the cover crops were growing, the fields turned into sponges. The amount of water flowing off the fields fell by half, lowering both nitrates and phosphorus. But it took a lot of time and money to cover the equivalent of 600 football fields. Imagine expanding that to the entire Mississippi River basin. It's likely that 70% of land won't be filled with cover crops without some major prodding. We'll probably need regulations, enforcement, and incentives, as well as new technology. You know, the kind of tools we've used to rein in every other pollution problem we've conquered. Until we get there, growing food is just going to come with a cost. Those baby shrimp and the entire Gulf Coast.
I'm Nathaniel Johnson from GRIST. If you want to know more about this problem and how to fix it, we are publishing an entire series with the Center for Public Integrity and the World. It covers poisonous algae, political drama, everything you need for the perfect evening in. The link to the series page is in the description.
Okay, now let us turn into page number 131 from your student book. Here, dear students, there are 3 pictures on this page. The pictures are shown in order. These pictures show how the use of inorganic fertilizers containing nitrogen affect our environment. Read captions and take a look at each picture. Rainwater on fertilized fields carries nitrogen from fertilizers into rivers and seas. The nitrogen feeds algae and other plants, which can grow too quickly using all the oxygen in the water. Other animals and plants die because there is not enough air for them. This causes dead zones in seas and rivers. Okay, let's continue reading. Some fertilizers contain chemicals that are poisonous to people and animals. Examples include lead, mercury, arsenic, nickel, and chromium. These metals can build up in vegetables that grow on. Making fertilizers also emits greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. You will learn more about global warming on the pages that follow. Alright, we understood that using inorganic fertilizers somehow affect lives on our Earth. Not well at all. Is it? More vegetables and other food items like rice, wheat, corns etc. more as the global population is increasing faster than before. There is no other alternative which will be more eco-friendly than this. We must control the excess use of fertilizers. Dear students, now kindly turn to page number 132 of your student book. Okay, tell me, what are you going to learn on this page? Excellent. We will learn about
For 2.5 million years, the Earth's climate has fluctuated, cycling from ice ages to warmer periods. But in the last century, the planet's temperature has risen unusually fast, about 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists believe it's human activity that's driving the temperatures up, a process known as global warming. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, factories, power plants, and eventually cars have burned fossil fuels such as oil and coal, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases trap heat near the Earth through a naturally occurring process called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect begins with the sun and the energy it radiates to the Earth. The Earth and the atmosphere absorb some of this energy, while the rest is radiated back into space. Naturally occurring gases in the atmosphere trap some of this energy and reflect it back, warming the Earth. Scientists now believe that the greenhouse effect is being intensified by the extra greenhouse gases that humans have released. Evidence for global warming includes a recent string of very warm years. Scientists report that 1998 was the warmest year in measured history, with 2005 coming in second. Meanwhile, readings taken from ice cores show that the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane have hit their highest levels in the past 420,000 years. Arctic sea ice is also shrinking. According to NASA studies, the extent of Arctic sea ice has declined about 10% in the last 30 years. As long as industrialized nations consume energy and developing countries increase their fossil fuel consumption, the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will continue to rise. Researchers predict that temperatures will increase about 2 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. What's less certain is what rising temperatures mean for the planet. Some climate models predict subtle changes. Others forecast rising sea levels which could flood coastal areas around the world. Weather patterns could change, making hurricanes more frequent. Severe droughts could become more common in warm areas, and species unable to adapt to the changing conditions would face extinction. Although much remains to be learned about global warming, many organizations advocate cutting greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the impact of global warming. Consumers can help by saving energy around the house, switching to compact fluorescent light bulbs, and driving fewer miles in the car each week. These simple changes may help keep the Earth cooler in the future.
Okay, let's read the contents on this page now. Global warming. The thick layer of gases around the Earth is called the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide, CO2, trap heat in the atmosphere. Some greenhouse gases occur naturally in our atmospherical ecosystem. Forests keep down the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere because they use CO2 and give out oxygen. However, human activities are increasing the levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere very quickly. The main sources of greenhouse gases are burning fuels and methane from cattle farming. Also, humans clear forests to make space for housing and farming. This is known as deforestation. With fewer trees to recycle the air, CO2 builds up in our. Okay. Now we are studying about greenhouse effect. Mainly there are three stages for the greenhouse effect. The Earth and the atmosphere reflect some of the sun's light. The Earth's surface absorbs most of the sunlight, which warms the Earth. Some heat energy from the Earth's surface gets absorbed in all directions by the particles of gas, greenhouse gases, in the atmosphere. This has the effect of warming the Earth's surface and the lower parts of the atmosphere further. Okay, now, I need to ask you the meaning of the keyword from this page. First, atmosphere. Very good. Atmosphere, the thick layer of gases that surrounds the Earth. Second, greenhouse gases. Very good. Gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. Excellent. The variety of plants and animals on Earth.
It's the superstorms bringing nations to their knees. The searing sun turning the earth into a tinderbox, leaving the ground cracked by drought, and the crashing waves of rising seas. But it seems this extreme weather isn't random. A UN report says this is climate change, and things are only going to get worse.
We have reasons to believe that if the world doesn't do anything about mitigating the emissions of greenhouse gases, and the extent of climate change continues to increase, then the very social stability of human systems could be at stake.
Today's report is somber reading. Rising temperatures and changing weather could mean more crops fail, so food is scarce. Wildlife will face extinction. Rising sea levels could make water undrinkable, with flooding forcing millions from their homes. And the threat of war will rise as people fight for resources. For some, the recent flooding in the UK is also a consequence. It's led to calls by the former Archbishop of Canterbury and the Energy Secretary to act now. But can wild weather really be blamed on humans?
We can no longer plead ignorance. 30 years ago, the previous generation maybe was damaging our atmosphere, the Earth, out of ignorance. Now ignorance is no longer a good excuse. We know.
After years of polluting and burning, today's warning is stark. It's time to slow down and clean up if we want the world to keep up. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News.
Okay, dear students. Kindly turn to page number 133. Here we are describing the consequences of global warming. We will read in clockwise direction, because this information are given in clockwise direction. Don't forget two things. Number 1, Number 2, reread with your teacher. Good. Okay. Now, let's continue reading. Animals and insects migrate to warmer places, carrying diseases such as malaria. As cooler countries get hotter, they may face outbreaks of disease. As temperatures or hurricane storms, droughts and other extreme weather conditions. The variety of plants and animals on Earth is known as biodiversity, but many plants and animals are dying because global warming is changing their habitats. Thousands of species are already extinct. The increase of diseases and natural disasters such as droughts and hurricanes will have a high economic cost for people on Earth. At the North and South Poles, there are huge bodies of ice called glaciers. Rising temperatures are melting these glaciers. Melting glaciers raise sea levels. Coastal cities and islands may disappear under glaciers formed from fresh water, not salty. As they melt, they change the composition of the seawater, and also cause sea levels to rise. This can damage the habitats of plants, animals, and people. Many species of plants and animals are already disappearing. The Earth. As they melt, global warming will increase even more. We did it! This is the end of our today's lesson. Okay, let's open our activity book now, and I need you to answer the questions from your activity book pages 75 to 77. Are you ready? Okay, dear students, I hope you understood very well our today's lesson. I am very happy to notice that you participated and gave excellent answers to my questions. Thank you. Until the next video lesson, see you. Bye.